You're welcome to another episode of Inside the Techosystem, a podcast where we bring you fun and insightful topics about tech and its ecosystem in Nigeria. I'm Chuka as usual, and I am joined by Emmanuel. Hey, Emmanuel.
Hey guys.
How you doing, man? How you been?
I'm good, as usual.
as usual, Emmanuel is always keeping it real. Alright, so apart from Emmanuel, we have an extra new voice on this podcast, on this show, and he goes by the name Uncle Tokes, or Tokes, or Tochukwu. Hey Tochukwu,
Hi,
can you just introduce yourself to our audience and those who are listening?
Hi, Chika. Hi,
it's
Emmanuel.
Cool if we call you Tokes,
Hi,
right?
everyone. Yeah, sure, you can call me Tokes.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tochukwu, and everybody calls me Tokes, like Chika said. And how I got the name Tokes was so surprising because while I was growing up, nobody ever called me Tokes. They were calling me something else, which I'm not going to say. Only for me now to enter school, and Emmanuel and the rest started calling me Tokes. And from there, even people that never knew Emmanuel and the rest were calling me Tokes started calling me Tokes. So I see the trigger that name Tokes from somewhere. But yeah, that's still fun that time. My name is Tochukwu Nkemdilim. I'm currently a software engineer in Kudi. More emphasis on back-end engineering / platforms team. Right. So, what Kudi is basically doing is providing financial services to underbanked and the unbanked in Africa. Right. So, my day-to-day job is basically building financial services backend. And in my free time, I love to tinker with compiler construction. I love building compilers. I think it's very fascinating. And I also love autonomous drones and knowing how it works, building stuff relating to that. I think that's my day-to-day life. And one more thing, I love startups. Startups freak me so much, honestly. And I think that's something I really love to explore more in the future. Yeah, so that's a brief run-through of what I do on a daily basis.
All right, amazing. I don't know if you guys noticed, but to me, Tokes is kind of a big deal. I mean, this man builds compilers in his spare time. So that is, I don't even know. I can't even build compilers in my own normal time. Talk less of when I'm free.
I think it boils down to interest, and everybody is good at what they do, right? So whatever just freaks you out, you just spend more time on it.
But Tokes, you're special, man. You're special.
Everybody's special. Even the person listening to the podcast is also super special.
Yeah. Well head. You're still special. That's what I Okay, so this is something new that we're doing on the podcast with every guest that comes on the show. We're trying to make it a culture kind of thing. And that is a question which we're going to be asking every single guest, which goes, what would you be doing if you weren't in tech? That's if you were not programming or you weren't doing anything tech related. What do you think your career would look like? What do you think your free time and your normal time, what would you think that would look like?
Actually, that question was not something I planned for, right? And outside programming, I think one thing I'm going to do very well is most likely I'm actually maybe not necessarily be a pastor, but be more focused on youth ministry and children ministry. I am super passionate about young people, babies, teenagers, youths. By the way, I actually taught in my teens church for a while, and I think that's where my strength lies very well. Even aside from I do program and everything, I have be able to reach out to a lot of people, even irrespective of me programming, right? So, and just a fun fact, actually, most likely after X amount of years, I don't know when, but I might have to drop my involvement in tech a bit. I think that's what focused on for most part of my life, right? I think that's something I enjoy so much. So outside tech, most likely to bring out the best in young people.
Oh wow!
That's really deep.
But a lot of people usually say after X amount of years, but we don't know what X stands for. So it could be a very long time.
Yeah, surprisingly, not so long actually. Let's say 10, 15, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah, honestly, I thought about it for like a while. Yes, kind of. I love like this whole tech thing and everything, building stuffs, right? But I feel a lot of people can live up to their potentials, even from our generation. I don't have to wait for the next 10 to like 15 years to bring out the best in my generation, right? Because that would have been late already. So I feel even starting now is something I do even in my free time, and even like in the long run, I think it's something I would do not so long from now. Like most likely go full time into. Maybe not. It depends like how things go and like as more responsibilities come and everything. But yeah.
Man, I feel like Tochukwu is a big inspiration to, a lot of us. Emmanuel, you too.
Yeah, surely.
Oh no.
All right, okay. So I think we should just dive in to the topic for today. And if you guys noticed from some of the things Stokes just said, Tochukwu is really intentional about people and, growth and building people and trying to make them reach their full potential. So we're just going to be talking a little bit about being intentional with career growth. And I know Tochukwu has probably talked about this a number of times. So we just like to hear some of his wisdom on the show and for every other person that's listening. So, Stokes, when you talk about career growth and being intentional with it, how do you personally handle that? Because we seem to be in a field where a lot of things just move really, really fast, and sometimes it feels impossible to catch up. So, like, if you were talking about it, like, in relation to tech, how would you personally, explain the steps to take?
Okay, so just from my own experience, right, especially in tech, there is information overload. And that's actually, I've spoken to like a lot of people who are dabbling in tech for the first time or programming or whatever field in tech. And there's always that, how do I learn this? How do I learn Node.js? How do I learn this one? How do I learn all of these things, right? I have been in that scenario before, right? And honestly, it's not a good scenario to be in, especially when you're like starting off and you don't have like someone to guide you and mentor you properly, which I didn't have, right? So I was caught in like that trap in the early days until I got to like understand more. Like, okay, guy, you can't really know everything. Like, honestly, you have to find like your niche, right? In this whole tech field, there's space for everybody, right? And there's no field that earns more than anybody. If you're a professional in what you do, you can actually earn more than what somebody else is earning in that field, right? And I always say this every time: the world trades in value, right? To add value to yourself, right? So you don't say, I want to focus on a particular niche because this niche gives you the most money, right? No. What gives you like the most money for those who are driven by money, right, is how much value you add to yourself. The more value you add to yourself, the more people are willing to pay for it. Now, not to digress. So for all of those things, what I do personally is I try to like keep track of where am I going to, what do I want, right? So I know, okay, I want to in the long run. And should I say this? Quite all right, I might be doing like web development now and so on and so forth, but that's not really where I see myself going, right? I'm super interested in like systems programming. You might have heard me say I love compilers. I love things like building databases, building OS. That's what triggers me, right? But in Nigeria, there's little to no involvement of that in the tech ecosystem as at now, right? But that doesn't digress me.
In the Techosystem.
Yeah, definitely it is the Techosystem.
You have the opportunity to say Techosystem on this podcast. No one is going to judge you, I promise.
Yeah, in Techosystem. I think that has to enter like the technology dictionary right now, coined by these two guys on this show. Oh no. So all of those things, So, but I know, okay, I'm not doing systems programming as I want to do, right? But I don't limit myself, right? But what I do is I track all of these. Okay, I'm going to this particular place, right? What are all the resources I have, or what are all the resources I
Okay.
need, and I plan it out, right? Planning resources in this sense doesn't just only mean tutorial videos. Resources in this sense means the not tutorials, the people you follow that indirectly mentor you. So for me, I have never had like a one-on-one mentor. But one thing I do is that when I'm under like someone that I know that is very good, I try to learn as much, get as much from the person than is expected by just studying the person's way of life. And for me, Quora has been like that mentor that I never had really. I've read like questions on Quora, and it has actually, I use Quora so much, and I think with Emmanuel, there was time we were going to like secondary schools teach people how to like use Quora. LinkedIn is a super important tool. Quora is super important.
Oh yeah.
So
I remember.
yeah, so it's something I use very much because exposing myself to Quora, right, feeds me with more information that allows me to be able to plan out where I'm going to, right? So I'm getting wealth of experience from people who have been in the industry for like 12 years, 20 years, 40 years. And I take all of those information and like furnish my goals. Okay, this way I'm going, right? I have all this information, right? How do I channel it? So also resources also includes the jobs, right? So something I do personally, right? I'm not job hunting, but I track companies I want to apply to in the future. I have like a Google Keep for it. I have a bullet point. Okay, this company does what I'm very interested in. I put it on Google Sheets. And sometimes things I want to apply for, like in the next year, I set an alarm, a calendar reminder for it. Like, okay, remind me next year at this point in time to apply for this thing. You get all of those kind of opportunities. So as I'm seeing opportunities that link to what I'm doing, most times I might, sift through the information. Does this really benefit me based on the wealth of experience I've gotten from Quora and from people I've interacted with? If it benefits me, is this something I'm applying to, right, that I need to apply to? If it is it something I'm qualified right now to apply to? If it is not, I plan it for the future, get the job requirements. I also have like a to-do list of technologies I want to learn. So I put it on my to-do list, right? So that way, I'm planning for like the next 1 year or next 2 years of when I'm going to like be applying for this particular role and what are like all the whole requirements, right? So at the end of everything, right, what I end up with is a to-do list of all the things I'm supposed to learn. So it's not something like I do like a flow chart, but it's just something probably I've done on like frequently, and it's like kind of like used to me. So that's like how I organize all those information. And as much as possible, especially to beginners, one thing I tell them is don't get distracted with technologies, don't get distracted with this framework, don't get distracted with all of these things. I stayed with C# for like probably 2-3 years. I remember then when we were like when we were in university, I was like this C# guy every time C#. And I was not doing any other language, but it's so funny when I think about it. But one thing I'm very grateful to God for about that early stage, right, was that I learned fundamentals, like the core fundamentals about a lot of things.
When was the last time you wrote C#?
When was the last time I wrote C#? I think the last time I wrote C# was when I was working at Wallet as an intern. That was the last time I wrote C#. That was .NET Core. But aside from that, in my day-to-day job, I write Java, but I write Java because of like my wealth of experience with C#. So because it's quite similar, so it was very easy for me to like pick it up. So knowing like that fundamentals, right, is very, very essential to like becoming like the best in whatever it is I want to. I'm not there yet, but it's a work in progress. Like everybody's a work in progress, and there's no point where you reach and you like say you are the best or you have reached that point. We all learning, right?
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a lot. Like I think I should be jotting things down right
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Because
Thank you,
this
Tochukwu,
sounds like
for
the
all
most
this, man.
detailed being intentional with anything I've ever heard. Like he says he creates notes
Yeah.
for something he's going to do 2 years after. So like
And
that's really impressive. Really.
can I
Yeah.
say something?
So like,
So this is
Yeah, sure.
like my little secret. So it's actually like applying to jobs. So I started applying to like jobs far back as like my 200 level. And I was not applying to Nigerian companies. I'm not like trashing Nigerian companies or anything. No. Like I mentioned,
The
I know.
energy, bro.
No. So like, you remember what I mentioned? Like the tech ecosystem doesn't have as much. It's not like doesn't have as much involvement of what I would like to do systems programming. You get. So I was always like applying from school, from like my 200 level, and every single time I apply, sometimes I might get rejected. I got rejected several times. I can't even count. But one thing I always told myself every time I got rejected was like, Tochukwu, now that you got rejected, what do you need to do that will make them not reject you the next time? So like I find out, is it open source that I did not do? Is it side projects I did not do? So I like have all those things, and like the next one, I grind, do all those things. I think I don't like right now. I don't really like this whole GitHub contribution thing. Is just not is a facade thing right now because it's not like an important metric again for me. But at that early stage, I was okay. Is it because I'm not doing enough GitHub contributions, and I would work like the next 1 year, do so many open source projects, all of those things, and I'll apply again. Why, if I get rejected, ask myself why they reject me. So like I felt it for me. I looked at it like as a 1 year plan. So it's not like a 3 months plan or this.
And
thing.
you were
So
like always getting constant
like
feedback
process.
on why
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really great actually. Like I think it's a sort of relief for people that feel like they're the only ones that have been rejected. So, yeah.
Rejections are, I think. So okay, go on, please, Emmanuel.
Yeah, I have a question. So you talked about how people can get very serious with their career by being intentional in the things that they do. So, but most of the stuff you talked about has been a little more about developers and maybe designers. So there's this misconception about tech, mostly in Nigeria, that okay, you're in tech, you're either developing or you're designing. So I wanted to ask you a little about people you've worked with other people in other fields of tech, and just want to get like a feel of what you think about other fields in tech.
Yeah.
At least in Nigeria.
Yeah, that's a very good question, right? Because I was having a conversation with someone yesterday and also today, right? And several times when I see, now that like people who are in other fields, I like tell them, come into IT, and like most times people are asking me, but I'm not like a programmer or a designer. Like, no, you don't have to be a programmer, you don't have to be a designer, you don't have to do all of those things for it to say you're into tech. You can be an HR and your major emphasis on tech startups, right? You can be a lawyer, but your emphasis is on startup, handling legals for startups, for maybe more focused on tech firms, right? You can be an accountant, right? And your core focus might be on fintechs, right? And early stage startups, right? You like there's possibility for like everybody, honestly, like in the whole tech field, right? And it's not really only for the graphic designers and like the tech guys, right? For what makes Google work today, it's not just only because of the programmers, right? There are so many people who go into like the whole pipeline of Google's workforce, right? And makes all of those things work. It's the same thing. Everybody who you see in working in Google, whether you're a business person, you're involved with tech directly, not even indirectly, involved with tech directly, right? So there's place really for everyone. If you are the person who likes writing, you studied English, there's too much place for you because you can either be a tech advocate, you can also write technical articles, right? You can also transition to be a PM, right? Because as time has gone by, you've seen how to better communicate technical requirements into things that people can easily understand. So like also room for you. If you we keep mentioning like several fields, even if you're in engineering, mechanical engineering or anything, I know there are technical startups, right, that also geared towards using like your mechanical engineering skills. Look at people like Tesla and the rest, right? So there's room for everybody like to move into tech. And as I mentioned several times when I have this conversation, I tell people transition into IT. There's opportunity for you, irrespective of what you study. There's opportunity for everybody in IT, honestly.
All right. So, Tokes, when you say there's opportunity, I have a question. When you were introducing yourself, you mentioned your passion being about things compiler related and the likes, but like as you also mentioned, like our ecosystem doesn't necessarily have room for some of those things. Like you won't necessarily apply for a job and say, oh, what I want to be building here is writing lexical, what do you call it, Tokes?
Analysis.
Lexas, passers.
Exactly. So, in my own opinion, I feel like we're a third world country, but we've not really done badly in our ecosystem. Like, we have really cool startups coming up and they are really doing amazing stuff. And, they're actually really impressing us, right? But now, just like you told me, just like you mentioned that you would have loved to delve into some more compiler related stuff, things that are like really passionate about in tech and not just web all the time or mobile all the time. I have friends like that too. Like I know someone that is really really interested in, I think, image optimization. I'm not really sure how to put it, but like working with images basically, with tech and maybe AI and machine learning. So, like, how would you describe how the ecosystem has tried to, incorporate more of these things and not just the common ones that we know and we're used to? Like, what do you think we can do better? How do you think we can move forward and, let people that actually have dreams and visions about these other fields and practices, how do you think they can, achieve them in a place like Nigeria? Because even you said, when you started applying, you're applying outside Nigeria. We're applying to companies abroad. So, like, how do you think other companies can, start making use of this and encouraging this kind of talent?
Okay, so to answer your question, when you were asking that question, something flashed through my mind. So there was this meetup I went to, like I think 2017 or so, or 2018. I can't remember precisely, right? And there were other tech guys that were there, and we are just having a discussion. I was telling them that the tech community has to integrate a lot of people, not just only programmers, right? You have to integrate physicists, all those guys. We were like, why is this guy saying this? And that's because of that's what brings out good products. I'll explain what I mean by that. So when we see Google today, right, we see all those animations. I'm confident that a lot of psychology has gone into that, right? But is psychology that related into tech? No. So
I think I remember that.
Exactly. I think Emmanuel, you're also in that meetup with me too.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So and I remember there was this paper I collaborated with in school on scent marketing, actually, like how scents can drive up sales. You get. So like many times and when you look at all of those whole things, what brings out the best in a field is not just only that field, it's like collaborative work, right? And so in general, it's what was Nigeria's tech ecosystem, right, has advanced, no doubt. Like within the past 10 years, it has advanced, like honestly, but we still have a long way to go. Like if I mean a long way, we have a long way to go. And the reason why I say a long way to go is because we, at this point, quite all right, we are builders, but I feel a lot of Nigerian tech companies are still in the consumption stage. I'll explain what I mean by that.
Wow.
So why did I say we are in the consumption stage? Only very, very few, right, are in the production state. So now, for example, we hear things like Kubernetes, we hear things like Prometheus, we hear things like Grafana, we hear things like Kibana, we hear all of those technologies, right? And when we hear all of those things, right, the reason why all of those technologies came into play was because those companies hit bottlenecks. how many Nigerian companies hit bottlenecks in their engineering? Because when you hit bottlenecks, that's what bets better technologies. When you hit scaling issues, that's what bets better technologies. When you know, oh man, guys, we can't handle what we are handling now. We need more resources or do this thing. Those are things that bet new technologies. Those are the points then when you see them like, guys, we don't really know what to do. How do we solve this problem, right? And by reason of you solving that problem, right, you solve the problem for yourself. And when probably you open source the tool in the nearest future, right? Some other engineering team in another company that sees what you build says, oh, these guys have solved that problem. Oh, thank God, we can integrate what they've done. You get, and like you build. We don't have a lot of that in Nigerian tech ecosystem currently, and that's because we are not hitting several of those bottlenecks. We are still consuming so many of these technologies, right? And it's not because of we don't have good programmers. We have solid programmers. I've met very good programmers, even people who are building compilers in Nigeria. I've met so many of those guys, right? But another angle to look at it, right, is the environment. What I mean by the environment, I mean exactly. So the environment currently hasn't pushed for so many of those technologies. Just imagine having a scooter startup. Why would you have a scooter startup? Where do you want to? What road? I know that it's not possible, but like only limited roads, right? Only few roads that you can use like a scooter on. You get. And if it's only limited to like a particular maybe location, right? It doesn't broaden your market as a business. You get. So in long run, there is that limiting effect. And investors, when they put in money, investors are not just putting money into businesses that are generating money. There are investors putting money into businesses that they know can grow 10 times, 20 times, like in maybe, let's say, X amount of years, maybe 1 year, 2 years. They won't see continuous growth, right? And that growth, the growth of like so many of these of our environment to fit into those technologies currently don't actually exist yet. So, and also looking at it, so in my own case, right? Let's say Kotlin now. Kotlin, why was Kotlin already built, right, in the first place, instead of Java and the rest? All those things. So several times there are limitations. Why was Rust built? There are limitations, right? The engineering teams have seen. At this point, we've not hit so many of those limitations in our engineering, right? That bet those kind of tools. Yet, so it's not like as if we have solid engineers, right? And that's why you notice that when several of our engineers like go into these engineering teams in other countries, like we do excellently well because we have that skill, right? But there's no sufficient market to bet those businesses, right, to work on those things.
Yeah.
So basically, it seems like in Nigeria, we try to put ourselves in a box, right? And
that's true.
Yeah, and like we see that someone is building the next fintech startup or the next ride hailing or something, and it's like no shade on any of people doing this, like, because I think we definitely need this, right, in Nigeria. But I mean, if we are going to kind of expand our horizons and let other fields participate and pick up roles in this ecosystem, I think we would actually have to go out of our comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, Emmanuel, change starts with you. Talks, change starts with you too. All right.
Okay, so for me, I think what I'll say is, there's this quote. I don't remember the person that came up with it. Necessity is the mother of inventions. I think. Yeah, I think that should be it. So basically, what that means is that in Africa or in Nigeria, I think right now we're probably doing the best we can because that's what's very necessary at the moment. So like you said, a lot of engineering companies in Nigeria haven't reached like bottlenecks that will require them to build like things that other companies would like to use. So I think that's just because maybe the market isn't as big as other countries. In the first place, our internet population is so low that when you create your own startup, like you have to accommodate for the fact that a lot of us using Opera Mini or a lot of us using USSD kind of phones. Do you get? So I think because of that, the growth is kind of slow, such that even if you try to solve big problems, like it will end up being a waste of time because you're not solving it for anyone. So if the fundamental, should I say, technologies in Nigeria have been built, right, such that it fosters the growth. So an example would be right now the penetration for smartphones is increasing in Nigeria, meaning that more people can use your app, right? So it means more traffic to your website, more traffic to your servers, meaning there's a possibility for you to reach those bottlenecks. So if the fundamental things are not built, then we'll probably not reach what we're talking about, which I think are currently being built, and we're heading towards a better future. So I have a question for folks. So I know you're a big fan of the programming language called Rust, and we'd like you to talk a little about the language and what drew you to the language, basically. Because I think as far back as 2018, you've always been talking about Rust. Like that time I used to wonder, like, I mean, there's Python, there's JavaScript, there's Java. Why in the world would someone be so excited about the language? Like,
I feel like Tokes is the only Rust developer I've ever come across in my entire life. Like, Tokes, you are the only person I know in this life that writes Rust. You are the only person.
So I think it still boils down. Yeah, I think it still boils down to like that original statement I made, right? Of what interests me and what am I going to, right? And what are things I need. So I'll just give a run through. So I always wanted to be building robots. Okay, so before I entered CU, I remember then I was already doing like research on Rust. So there's this Rust operating system, robotic operating system, and like being into it, trying to like understand it very well. But several times I discovered that it was with C++, and like pre-CU, I did not like know how to write C++. I remember I had like the Turbo C compiler, but I did not know how to install compile the code. So I never like started C++ until when I entered school, like university. But when at that point, so there was this point where I was like asking myself, okay, now I need to learn a new language, right? And what do I really need to do? Which of the language I need to like learn? Then it was Go and it was Rust. That time Rust was just entered stable 1.0, and I think at that point in time, Golang was also like still that early stage time. So I was like asking myself, which of these two languages do I want to learn, right? And I saw Go. Go was networking, more networking focused, like Rust. And I like, man, guy, I really love everything. Then I did not know about compiler construction, but then I love things like building OS. I wanted to know like how OS worked, building like all those core system stuff, right? So like I said, I was going to like go with Rust. And the major reason why I went to Rust was because I felt, okay, so this is like imposter syndrome, where like I saw C++ was too big and I don't know where to like start from and start learning. But like, I saw Rust. Rust is just starting, right? That means if I grow with the community, I'm going to learn everything from ground up and not miss any of the information. So that was the major reason why I stayed with Rust, right? So I was following like the newsletter. Initially, I stopped following Rust. Like I was writing Rust back then, but I wasn't doing like much of Rust because of like my whole school thing. But until later that year, I think that was 2017, 2018, there was this Rust meetup in Lagos, right? That was organized by Shield and Lige, right? So when I saw there was a Rust meetup, I was super excited. I remember then Emmanuel and the rest were going for a meetup that day, and while they were going for 4Loop, I said, no, I'm not going for, I think it was 4Loop or so at the zone. I said, no, I'm not going, I'm going for Rust. I'm going for that Rust meetup.
4Loop meetup. For Rust.
Surprisingly, they all went, and I went for like the Rust meetup, and that was like one of the best times in my life, like going for like that Rust meetup. And I did not write any code. Like the people I met there, I think eventually when I entered like into this Mozilla's Rust program, right? It was because of that I went for that singular meetup. That was why I met like the necessary networks and people to like be able to get into that program, right? So it's for me, it was just more of I really wanted to like learn a system program language, C++, but C++ is too wide, too deep. I don't know where to start, right? Rust is the alternative, and it's still early stage. I can grow with the community. Let me grow with it. And surprisingly, like I mentioned, I also try to like surround myself with people that will also help me to like grow. I did not have a lot of Rust friends, right? People were not writing Rust around me. So what I did was I went Twitter. Even till now, I follow major people I follow on my Twitter are Rustaceans actually. Like I am following like times 4 of the people that are following me, but like that times 4, maybe 3/4 of them are all Rust guys. And I followed so many of those people because I did not want to miss any information in the community, any news that's coming up, anybody that's working on any project, anybody that's doing anything. I did not want to miss any information. So I followed lots of people. So it got to a point where I was always seeing Rust everywhere. And it kind of like helped me. And I'm hoping I can write Rust like full time. Like I think that's what I would like to do full time actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, man.
That's great.
Just before we let you go, we have one more question. Actually, I have one more question, and we're just going to play a little game. So, like, part of what we're trying to incorporate on the show is a question at the beginning, which is what would you be doing if it wasn't tech, and at the end we'll play a little game with the guests. But before we do the game, I just want to ask a question, a very short, simple question. You recently launched a product called Tuforty. Could you just tell us a little bit about what that is and what inspired you to go ahead and build it?
Tuforty. Whenever I remember the project is, you will never believe like how the project stemmed up. And I think that's why one thing I've learned is no idea is trash. Like any idea you have is not trash.
Really?
Like really, it started as an internship project. So I'll give you a brief run through. After I finished my 100 level, after I finished my 100 level, right, because of like the scholarship I was on, the requirement was we were supposed to work for 1 year. Sorry, we're supposed to work for like, I think 6 weeks without pay. So I got like I joined in this company at Keja, Upperlink, and I started working there. And so when I came, they gave them a project. Before I came, they gave them a project to take a monetary a value and convert it to the words form. Like they had spent lots of time on it and they had not solved it. So like when I came, I just solved the problem like in a short time. And they were like my supervisor then was like super surprised. And yeah, it's kind of like after doing that, it just died there until like maybe 2017. Remember I mentioned at that point, I started applying to international companies, right? Then that's when I saw that, okay, guy, you have to be doing open source projects. So what I was doing was, okay, what open source project can I do? So then I took down my old code and I made it like a library in PHP. Now, as time went on, I started saying, guy, I can improve this thing. I can add language translation, right? If I already have this thing in words, I can translate it to another language. So I integrated a Google translation library. And there was this library that time to convert currency values. To translate like monetary values to words. To translate words like say a sentence to another language using the Google's Translate library for free. So it kind of like scraps the website, Google's Translate website to like do the translation for it. So it was working, but then as time went on, I sat down one day, so that was this year, and I told myself, man, guy, you need to launch a product. And I thought, I had like other products that I work on like in the pipeline. So I told myself, what's the fastest product to launch, right? And for me, my own, exactly, in the shortest possible time. And for me, really, this is like my own principle. I prefer working with people. I'd rather have 5% of a side project than have 100% of a side project. Like, I'm not after like the whole gain or anything, no. I feel the best way to ship our product faster is through collaboration, right? And so like I reached out to John. John, I have this stuff. Actually, funny enough, I was actually reached out to John. I told him, John, I'm going to pay you, right? And that was the agreement. And so, well then, friends always be friends. He kind of like bought into the vision, like, guy, don't worry, can I join you and work on this thing? And we agreed. right? So I like drafted out like all the plans. So now it was an open source project, and should I mention that as the last time I checked, the project was like at how many thousand installs? Like about, yeah. So it was from an internship project, right? As of now, it's on 4.9K installs, downloads, right? And
you have to do giveaway or something.
No. No, it's still, we are not there yet. And like there are 6 contributors like in total. So like when I looked at all of those, they're like, man, this is something people are actually using, right? Why can't I turn this into a valid product? And I checked Stack Overflow. People had asked that question. Nobody had solved the problem, right? Like there were so many Stack Overflow questions like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to actually build this thing, right? So what I did was that the one on GitHub, right, has this functionality. So what I did was I created like a closed source version. Definitely it's like in my business and stuff, right? And I improved it to support currency translation, supports so many features. Like, so, and then after I built that library, then I built like an API service on top of it to use the library I wrote, right? Then John did the whole front end and like we shipped on product hunt, right? So that's like a brief front. For those who don't know what Tuforty is, Tuforty just basically takes in a currency value like 25.5, and you can convert it to something like maybe 25 naira.
5 kobo.
5 kobo. And you can now take that 25 naira, 5 kobo,
50 kobo.
and you can convert it to, let's say French, you get, or you can convert it to maybe any language basically. And the beautiful part is you can take any other numeral, so you don't have to use 1, 2, 3. You can take in Chinese numerals, like as many numerals that are supported, right? And you can convert it to like any language. There are still more features like in the pipeline, like doing currency.
Yeah, we will put the link to the website in the show notes. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Tokes. You've been awesome. You've been amazing, really. We really appreciate you coming on the show to talk about career growth and some of your other interests. All right, so the last thing we're just going to do is we're going to ask you a question, which may be a little bit controversial. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right, so the question is, if you had the chance to eliminate one programming language from the surface of the earth forever, what would it be and why? What programming language would you eliminate? Like nobody is allowed to touch or use this language ever again. Every single project and product built on this language, dead. So what programming language would that be?
You're putting me in the tight spot. Can I make that too? Can I make that too?
Take your time.
Oh no. Okay.
Remember, communities may be listening to this podcast and some of them have your address, so please answer with caution.
Man. It's a tie. I don't know how best to say it. It's actually Rust and JavaScript. But if I were to
Rust and JavaScript.
Yes, actually. Rust and JavaScript.
To
eliminate.
But if I were to pick a tie between both of them.
No, I'm not talking about picking a tie. I'm talking about eliminating a particular language from the surface of the earth.
Eliminating?
Yes, like you are going to totally delete the language, and as you're deleting the users, the communities, the projects, every single thing related to the language.
What language would that be?
This one should be easier.
What language would that be? Thinking about it now. What language would that be?
You have to tell us why.
CSS.
What?
Please, CSS.
We're just going to take it. It's not programming language per se, but I mean, okay, why would you eliminate CSS, please? is so important. Can you imagine this
I
guy?
will eliminate CSS with the hope that there was something else. That's the assumption.
Oh, wow.
Like, let's assume CSS never existed. I believe there would have been something else that would have made it so easy. So this is the funny thing. I used to be good in CSS before, right? And funny enough, when we used to work on projects like, I was very good in CSS before. Like, even when I used to work on...
Tochukwu was the front. Can you imagine that Tochukwu used to be the front end guy?
Manual and the rest.
There's no way. I don't believe this.
Seriously, I used to be the front end guy. Unfortunately, backend and Rust and GS stole my heart from CSS. Okay, so I think as time went on, I just wanted to like focus more on doing like the whole backend things. I love skill. Like I love hearing how many thousand requests per second. Oh no, whenever I hear stuff like that, like it just tinkers my body. Like, man, yeah, Tokes, that's your zone. You get. So like I think as I like dabbled more into tech, I found out that guy, that's what you really want to be doing. You like to do very well. That's what you like to like hear about, discuss, right? So I think I spend more time on it. And honestly, the truth is, when you stay far from something, right? The more you stay far from something, the more you lose grip of it. Today, I can still look at CSS code and still build my own stuff. Like there was a time I just vexed and like, man, guy, people have been underrating your CSS scheme. I decided I was going to build like this platform without no JavaScript framework. This was like last year, and I did everything, the whole thing. So it's still there, but it's not something I like doing. I'll spend longer time on it because I've not been practicing it like for a long time. You get, but like I think I would eliminate CSS out of this world. Like it doesn't need to exist. Like it's has been putting developers on pressure on like heavy pressure.
Don't discourage those that are planning to learn this thing.
All right, man. Thank you once again.
Okay, so it has been a very wonderful episode with Tochukwu. I hope you guys learned a lot, because me, I learned a lot too. Even if Tochukwu is my friend, I'm learning so much right now. And don't forget to check out his products. He has worked very hard on this. I'm sure he wants to get users from here. This is not an ad, but I mean, check it out. It's an awesome product. And yeah, thank you once again, Tochukwu, for joining us. And we hope to maybe have you again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be fun.
Yeah, like that's really fun speaking to you guys. I really enjoy like the whole you guys flew into like the whole podcast thing. I think that's something that's it's not that popular. Yeah, it's kind of popular in Nigeria recently, but I think there's still more ground for like people to go more into podcasts, recording more tech YouTube videos, like in the whole Nigerian Techosystem. Right? So, well, you guys going into
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. And we're going to link how you can contact Tokes on social media in the show notes and some other show notes, important show notes stuff. Alright, remember we release new episodes every other Wednesday, and you can listen to this podcast on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you get your podcast. Thank you once again. Alright, see you in the next one.